Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. It is raining outside today. We're getting some much needed rain, so we're not complaining. So I thought we would do some recipes because we haven't been in the kitchen very often lately, and I know some of you folks love the recipes more than you like the outside stuff. So I decided I'm going to take you on a pie journey this week over the next couple days. And I'm going to show you how to make some pies that are super simple. Not a lot of baking involved. Most of it is cooking on the stovetop and dumping the filling into a pre-baked pie shell. Now, I don't mean the ones you buy at the store that are pre-baked. We're actually going to bake the pie shell. But we're not going to go to the great lengths that we did for like the apple pie that we made the video for, the red hot apple pie, where we made our own fantastic pie crust. If you don't have the want or the need to make your own pie crust, which I recommend you try and use in our recipe, the next best thing, I believe, is this right here. This pie crust here that you get in the box at the store comes in a roll like this. It's not the one that's already in the pie tin. Those are not very good experience at all. These are about the closest thing you can get to a homemade pie crust. It gets nice and flaky. You can see there the picture on the box. It looks a lot like that. And plus you get the hand-formed edges that tell people that it's a homemade pie, even though you didn't make the dough. These are extremely easy to work with. You just have to thaw them out, unroll them, form them, and bake them. And we'll show you how to do that. So I keep these boxes of pie dough in the freezer. And if they're frozen, you need to bring them to room temperature on the counter for an hour to 90 minutes. And do not rush that, because if they're still too cold, the pie crust won't be very pliable and it's going to want to come apart on you. Now center the pie dough in the pan the best you can, because you want enough to come out over the edges and kind of grip on the outside edge of the pie pan, because if you don't, as you bake this, it's going to want to kind of slip down into the pie pan and you'll get a low spot on the edge of your pie. So we've got this centered pretty well. So now we're going to go around the edges with 3 fingers, and you just pinch between your thumb and your forefinger and your second finger. Just pinch it like that, and you're going to get those little dimples all the way around your pie as you go around. But I'm going to get both hands down here and get this done. All right, we got this done for the most part. Got a little thin over here, but I think it's going to be okay. Now, when you're pressing this down, the little piece of dough that goes in between your fingers right here, you want to kind of hook it over the outside edge. And we'll see if you can see that. See how those little hooks are kind of hooked over the edge of the pie pan? That's what you want, because otherwise when this stuff gets loose in the oven, like I said, it's going to want to slide back down into that pan. Now, the next thing you do before you pre-bake your crust, you want to get a fork and you want to go around in your pie making holes in your pie crust. And what this does, as this pie bakes, steam is going to get trapped underneath that crust. And these little holes will let that steam out, and your pie crust won't bubble up in the middle all crazy. Now, some people will take dry beans and they make special oven-proof weights that you can throw in the bottom of the pie crust. But I've always found that if you just make some holes in it, you're doing okay. Now, I'll also come through here and do holes in the side, but I can't do it with one hand. But we'll make holes all the way around the side as well. Now, if you were doing a pie with that you have to bake, like a quiche or something like that, where the filling will bake right along with the pie crust, you don't need to do all these little holes, because the weight of that filling will hold that down. Also, if you're doing like a a French apple or something like that that's got like a crumb top on it or something like that, same thing. You wouldn't have to cut those, make those little holes. Now you're going to want to preheat your oven to 450 degrees, and we didn't preheat, so now we're going to wait for it to heat. But I started getting some of my hardware ready. I got a nice, like a couple quart saucepan, and get you something similar to this. This is a small little whisk that I use because it scrapes the bottom of the pan really well. Whereas if you use like a wire whisk, it won't get into these corners in the pan. And we want to keep this stirred up real nicely. Now the thing that's going to be different that I'm going to show you, most of your cream pies or pour-in pie fillings have the eggs in them and such, and the recipes are going to tell you to separate things out, heat your pie filling mixture, and then you got to temper the eggs by putting a little bit of the mixture into your eggs and stirring it up, doing it little by little, and then incorporating everything together and finally getting it together and making it thick. Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to go to all those crazy steps. Put all of your filling ingredients in that pot, turn it on about medium heat, and start cooking it. Doesn't take too long. And about the time it comes to a boil, it's going to be about as thick as it's going to be. And when it looks like pudding consistency, that's when it's done. It's when you pour it into your pie shell. You don't have to do all that tempering and silly stuff. Now, the only thing that I wouldn't put in the pot, say you're making a vanilla cream pie, I wouldn't put the vanilla in right away. I would stir that in at the last part. So we're going to bake this pie shell off. It's going to be 10 to 12 minutes in a 450 degree oven, or until it's nice golden brown and looks really good. Keep an eye on it. You don't want it to burn. Now the first pie we're going to make for you was my dad and my favorite. It's a lemon pie. And I just say lemon because I never do the meringue. It's kind of a headache to do. And I always just have a can of whipped cream, the real whipped cream in the fridge. And I just put a little bit on top of the pie. Anytime I'm doing any kind of a cream pie, I don't bother with meringue. Now I don't waste the egg whites. We'll cook those up and we'll give those to Brandy for a little treat. But while we're waiting, since we're doing a lemon pie, I'm going to go ahead and zest our lemon. Take all the zest off of this lemon because it's a lot easier to do before you squeeze it. I got our cool antique lemon reamer out. I love this thing. I got a smaller one just like this for limes. So we're going to zest this, and then we will cut it in half and we will juice it, then pour our juice into the measuring cup. That's something you can do early. So when you're zesting a lemon, I have one of these little micro plane graters. I rest the grater on like a paper plate, and then I hold the lemon in my other hand and I just rotate the lemon around as I grate it. I'm not trying to use the grater on the lemon. It's a little cumbersome if you do that. If you do it this way, all of your zest falls in the same pile. And then once you're all done, like I got most of the zest off, then you can take it and just tap it out of there. Now I have to confess, when I was younger, I never added the lemon zest into this recipe because, I don't know if it was a texture thing or if I just didn't like the idea. But I highly recommend adding the zest. Now that I'm older, I really enjoy it. It adds just a really pop of lemon flavor into the pie. And there's just no substitution. There's so much lemon flavor in that zest. It's amazing. So now I use it every time. Okay, now that we got our lemon juiced, I'm going to pour it through our little strainer right into our measuring cup. That's going to catch any seeds or any other debris that we got going on. Just stick your finger in there and run it around a little bit, and all that juice will go right through that sieve. And if you want to keep this pulp in here, you can throw that into your pie. but I don't normally do that. I just throw that away with the seeds. Ooh, nice and tart lemon. Now my favorite lemon to use for lemon pie is Meyer lemon. It's a smaller, kind of an orange colored lemon. If you've never seen those before, the taste is phenomenal on the Meyer lemons. They're just maybe a tad sweeter, but not much. This is more of a Eureka lemon here, more of a yellow lemon. But if you can get the Meyer lemons, they're fantastic. But beggars can't be choosers with citrus out here in the Midwest because it doesn't grow here. So you've got to use what you got at the store. So our oven is up to temp. And how you tell on these old gas ovens, because yes, you have a light over there, but that, like on an electric oven, that light will either go off or come on when your oven's at temperature. With these old ones, how to tell if it's up to temperatures, you'll actually hear the gas burner turn off. That means it's up to temperature. So that's how you tell. So let's get our pie crust into this 450 degree oven. And we're going to start checking at 10 minutes. We don't want to go to 12 because that may be too long. So as our pie shell bakes, we're going to start putting our dry ingredients together. We've started out with 1.5 cups of sugar, and now we're going to go for the thickener. Now normally the thickener for a lemon pie is cornstarch, but I prefer flour. Flour gives it a much more, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of an old-timey kind of texture. I really like it, whereas the cornstarch give it kind of a clear color. The flour will give it kind of a cloudy, kind of custardy look to it, and I really enjoy the texture. It seems a lot more rustic. Now, if you're going to substitute flour for cornstarch, like this recipe usually calls for 1/3 cup of cornstarch, I'm going to use 2/3 cup of flour. Just doubling it. And you can do this in any pie recipe, and that's what I do. I don't use the cornstarch. Okay, that does it for the dry ingredients, the flour and the sugar. We're going to stir this together to where it's nice and combined, and you can't tell any difference between the two substances. It looks like it's all one mix. And then we're not going to add any liquid into this until we're ready to start cooking, which will be the water and the eggs and stuff like that. And remember what I said, we don't have to cook everything separately. We're going to show you how to do it all at once, and it's so much easier, and it turns out just as good. Now, there are a couple things that we're going to hold till the very last, and that'll be the lemon juice, the butter, and the lemon zest. Once the mixture is all ready and nice and thick, we'll dump those last 3 ingredients in. We don't have to be real careful about it. Just throw it in there, let it melt, let it combine. The butter will give it a kind of shiny look, and it'll be some beautiful stuff. Now, I got, I think, an 8-inch pie pan, but I'm making enough filling for a 9-inch pie because I always like to put a little bit extra, whatever's extra that doesn't fit in the pie shell, in a little dish, and I eat it like pudding later. Alright, let's take a look. That looks pretty nice. We're probably going to pull her out. Alright, it's nice and golden brown. Can you see how flaky that is for a store-bought pie crust? It's really good, and it tastes good too. A good pie crust should taste good enough to where you want to eat the crust. Store-bought pies, I will leave this crust on my plate because it tastes nasty and bitter. Now you can see where that got a little thin right there, and you can see where we slipped just a little bit, but it wasn't that bad to where it slipped all the way down in the bottom. We still got a nice edge there, and that pie will be fine. So while the pie shell cools over here on the stove, we started putting our wet ingredients together, which is 1.5 cups of water, 3 egg yolks, We're going to need a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which just happened to be in that lemon. We got a 1/4 cup. We need a tablespoon of zest, which is pretty much what we got there. And we're going to need 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to get that out of the fridge. Now, since that lemon juice and butter are going into the pans at the same time, I just put it in the same vessel there. And then I got the lemon zest here ready just to dump in out of that. Now, this is our egg whites that I will cook up for Brandy, the Wonder Dog. Now, you would just use those to make the meringue if you were making lemon meringue pie. You use the egg whites from those egg yolks that we put in there. And you'd put them in your KitchenAid mixer with your wire whip. You'd get a little sugar, a little cream of tartar. I believe that's about it. But there's meringue recipes all over the internet that you can use. And you just whip it up real good into stiff peaks. There's a process. You start with the egg whites by themselves, and then once they start coming together, you add the sugar and I believe the cream of tartar and whip it up to stiff peaks. And then you'll just dump it over your pie filling once it's in there. And then the key to keeping meringue from shrinking away from the edges of your pie, when you pour your meringue over your pie and you have your spatula, push your spatula down on the edge and connect the meringue, make sure it makes contact with the crust. Bring it down and kind of smush it onto the edge of the crust where it kind of glues down. And then do your little swirly or whatever on top, and then you got to bake it to brown the top of that meringue and cook the meringue on the inside, basically. And that usually keeps it from pulling away from the crust. It's a little trick. But again, we're not making meringue today. So this pie crust does not have to cool absolutely completely because we're going to be putting hot ingredients into it. So we're going to get started. And to get started, all we do is dump our water and our egg yolks into the mix. And yes, you people that have been making pies for a long time, you're not supposed to put those eggs in there yet. Again, you don't have to. So we're going to mix this till it's completely incorporated, all the wet and dry, and the eggs are nice and beat up. I don't have any fire on yet. We're just going to combine this mix until it looks pretty good, and then we'll put it on about medium heat. And remember, once it boils, it'll be pretty thick. So when it's like pudding consistency and just before you're ready to pull it off, we will dump in the butter, the lemon juice, and the lemon zest and incorporate that. The butter will melt into the mix, and then we'll get a spatula and just dump it right into that pie shell. So let's get some heat on under here. We'll go to medium, and we'll get to cooking. Now, you don't want to walk too far away from this, because just like when you're making gravy or whatever, it's going to get thicker on the bottom first, because that's where the heat's at. And use a nice heavy bottom pot. These saucepans I have a real heavy clad bottom on them. And that's what we like to use. It distributes the heat a lot better. So that's incorporated real nicely. So we'll stand by, we'll stir this every 45 seconds or so to make sure nothing's sticking. Make sure you get up here on the sides and all that. And we'll come back when it starts to thicken up and we'll show you. Alright, our filling's starting to get thick. You don't want to leave it alone for very long when it starts to thicken up, because then you'll get lumpy pie filling. But I can really start feeling it to drag as I stir it. I'm going to turn this down to low as it starts to thicken, because we don't want to go too fast. So it's getting nice and thick. We are boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and dump in our butter. Get it melting. our lemon juice. And I'm also going to dump in our lemon zest. And we'll get that all incorporated in. Now once this butter is melted, we can go ahead and pour it into the pie crust. And that's going to require 2 hands. So let me get this all incorporated, and we'll come back once I pour that into the pie crust. Alright, there she is. See how shiny that butter turned that mixture. And that's a lemon pie. So as that cools, that's going to set up nice and hard. And the sad thing is I didn't get any extra from my midnight snack. But I can lick the spoon once this cools off. So we'll be back in a little bit. There you go, pup. Good stuff. Mmm. Now, if you've ever had store-bought lemon pie, there's going to be an absolute night and day difference between this recipe and store-bought lemon pie. Store-bought lemon pie, if you know what you're tasting, is going to have that weird fake flavor to it. Like they use powdered lemon stuff or whatever. It just doesn't taste good at all. This pie is going to have a really nice, beautiful, smooth texture, smooth flavor. Tastes like real lemons. It's going to knock your socks off if you like lemon at all. Oh, wow. So good. Even though there's not Meyer lemons in it. That's really tasty. Dad would have really loved a piece of this pie. That was his favorite, that and chocolate. So I'm going to eat the rest of this. And we're going to wait for this pie to set up. And it'll be good to go. And like I said, get your favorite whipped cream or Cool Whip or whatever and throw on top of it if you don't want to mess with meringue like I don't. So we're going to be making some more pies here in the next couple days, and we'll show you how to make those. They're going to be more of a custard or cream type pie. A very, very versatile recipe, because once you get a vanilla cream pie mix, you can go crazy with that. You can go coconut cream, you can go banana cream just by adding coconut and banana. You can go chocolate cream. You can go absolutely bonkers with the vanilla cream pie recipe, and we'll show you how to do that. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. We'll put a couple recipes and a recipe playlist up here for you to go through. We got some fantastic recipes on this channel, folks. All tried and true stuff. We do not disappoint with our recipes on this channel. So until next time, we'll catch you later.